Hey, it's Buddy Lee. Welcome to my channel. So after all the bugs have finally been worked out, I've been able to come to a conclusion on the Hawkeye buff, and that conclusion is that I like him a lot, and his damage is still really great. In this video, I'm going to be taking his damage to the limit, at least as a 5-star rank 4, with some synergies that make for some crazy bleed numbers. So the synergy that's going to be helping the most is with Darkhawk. This is going to increase our critical rating by 5% and increase the damaging debuff potency by 40%. Next is Black Panther Civil War, giving our bleeds another 25% potency. Then I have Hercules on the team, and I'm going to be showing you 3 rotations in this video, and he's going to be helping out with the SP1 rotation, since he'll give a 20% fury buff every time the defender's power is drained below a bar of power threshold. Alright, this first rotation is going to start with Hawkeye throwing an SP2 when we are close to 3 bars of power. I do this because I'll get the 2 fragility debuffs from a perfect release, and I want those to still be active when I build the SP3 afterwards. If you're not liking Hawkeye because the perfect release is difficult, it's actually very easy to get it every time if you pay attention to when the arrow lights up and release at that point. Doing this, at least for me, takes any risk of missing out of the equation. Now the SP3 is the most risky special in terms of missing the timing on the SP3 minigame, which is easy to do. If you get perfect, it will be a crit bleed 100% of the time, and the bleed is very nice and lasts a long time. But if you land on the yellow or miss entirely, you can still get the crit bleed, but it won't be guaranteed or last as long. So it's the biggest reward, but also the biggest risk. But we got it here, and now we have a bleed that's doing over 5k per tick that's gonna last for the rest of the fight as long as we can keep attacking. It doesn't look like it now, but we're actually about halfway through the time that it's going to take me to finish this fight. And now I'm going to throw one more SP2 and then switch to SP1s to finish it out. I'm going back to the SP2 to get the fragility debuffs again and give a few of my SP1 bleeds some extra damage. Now I'm going to start throwing SP1s that will take Rolk below his current bar of power, giving us the 20% fury buff, and then try to stand up intercept if we can, which is going to give us a pretty consistent attack and let those bleeds keep working. With these 8 bleeds, we're ticking away at over 10k, but it's a little difficult to see it all at the same time. The final 80% of Red Hulk went down in the last 90 seconds, and we finished with a crazy, especially for a rank 4 5-star, 136 hits. Another very impressive thing is that these 3 takedowns with different cycles that I'm showing are being done on the short enrage timer because Hawkeye at rank 4 doesn't have enough tack for the longer timer. And also these were all done back to back to back. The next cycle that I'm going to use is the one that's the most damage mastery friendly, and it's going to again start with SP2 and then switch over to SP3s for the rest of the fight. This makes for a huge amount of consistent bleed damage that can last for the whole fight, but if you're not great at the minigame, you can easily mess it up. It's nice to get a parry before throwing SP3 so that you have an opening to attack right after and pause the bleeds. But here I missed the parry and I want to get the SP3 off before the fragility debuffs wear off. If the parry doesn't work out, it's not really a big deal. So now for the rest of the fight, I'm just going to cycle back to SP3 and start stacking all of the bleed damage. And as you'll see, the damage really starts piling up after a few of them. I end up getting clipped by the SP2 here and then take a huge combo, almost killing me. However, this kind of works out in a way to highlight that this cycle isn't going to be causing me any trouble with recoil damage. Now we have 2 stacks of 3 bleeds from 2 SP3s, and the one we just placed without fragility is going for about 3700 per tick, which combines for a total of just under 9k bleed per tick already. The health is melting off Rolk so quickly now with the 6 bleeds. Now let's see how he'll do with 9. We're up to 12,500 bleed per tick now, which we can keep active as long as we're able to keep attacking. So that was pretty great, and we finished with almost exactly the same hits as the first cycle with 138. However, if this fight was any longer, I think we would have pulled away by a long ways with this cycle. This last cycle is gonna probably be what I'll use for shorter fights, and it's just gonna be SP2 all the way. Doing this, you can cut out some of the build up to the big bleed damage, but still take advantage of the fragility debuffs to boost each critical bleed along the way. Also, in shorter matchups, you could just start with SP2 and then switch to SP1s, and this might be better for you if you aren't running damage masteries, but for me, I'd rather just stick to SP2s and then only take probably 2 recoils per fight. So on our first SP2 crit bleed, we're doing 2200 per tick, and when we threw our second SP2 with the fragility, we get an extra 1k per tick with 3200 per tick. We're probably going to be able to stack 4 bleeds at a time doing this, so the damage isn't going to be able to ramp up as much, but like I said, this would do well I think for normal health pools without having to ramp up as much. So this cycle did take much longer as my enrage timer almost ended, and I needed an extra 40 something hits, so it's not as impressive here, but I think it will have its uses in other places. So that's 3 different cycles for Hawkeye, as well as a showcase of how nuts he can be by adding some synergies to the team. In reality, his damage is pretty good without, but if you can find a spot for just Darkhawk, it will make a nice difference. Well, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.